currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Sunday, March 10th, 2013. You know what that means. It's been 2 weeks. It's episode number 6 of Cutting Through the BS with Johnny English. And Johnny, we have a ton of crap to get through today. Some of it actually quite interesting. Some of it's not crap. Some of it is going to make people want to yell and scream, the level of stupidity. We're going to go from one extreme to the other and cover everything in between. So first off, welcome back to the broadcast, dude.
Hey, thanks, Popeye. I'm glad to be back, and hopefully I'll be back live on my show next Saturday night. So we got our equipment issues kind of solved. We're just kind of working through some other things, and I am always glad to be on with you, sir.
Well, first I want to let everybody know before we get into anything, get sidetracked. Johnny is also now a author and a contributor.
Yeah.
At Federal Jack at my website over at federaljack.com. And Johnny just wrote an article about that, which we're going to get into today, about drones and about the actually more concerning an antenna array that he found. And once it just kind of popped out to him, and he looked into it and started to realize the implications of what he might have stumbled upon. And I'm going to let him get into that. And I really want to pick your brain on that because you really wrote that. I know it's going to be a multi-part article, and the one you just released is the first part in the multi-part. And it's actually really in depth. I read through it twice, and I was like, wow. So you didn't like just take pictures and run up back to me and say, hey, can I write a blog? And then type up some crap. You took like 2 or 3 days to put this thing together, and you actually put a lot of research into it.
Yeah, I probably went a little too far with the first edition, but dude, there was so much that I kept finding. There was so much that kept opening up, and it's like one door led to another door, which led to another door, and it just kept going on and on and on.
Well, let's get into it. Instead of putting it off till later, let's cover that now. We can get into the other stuff later. So what happened? You were driving down the road. I know you're a truck driver, so you're driving down the road, and you happen to look over and you see some odd antenna array?
Well, no, I wasn't working. This was on a Sunday, and I and my wife and some friends, couple of friends that are moving. They're moving to another area of Iowa here, and we were looking at a place that was closer to them, and we decided we found this unbelievably cheap house out in a little town called Oxford Junction, Iowa. Now, this is a little town. it's rural. It's there's hardly anybody out there. I would guess to say maybe a few hundred people. Maybe a handful of people that live there. And we get out there. Excuse me. As we're going out there, we get probably about 2 or 3 miles from the town, and I'm driving, so I'm not really paying attention to what's out my passenger window. My friend is looking out the window. My wife and they're like, "Hey, that's kind of a weird cell phone tower." And I just kind of look, and I'm like, "That's not a cell phone tower." I'm like, the cell phone towers are just one tower, and they usually have dishes hanging off of it or whatever, or even broadcast towers. They have dishes, and it's usually just one tower, one big tower. This thing had at least 6 towers, and it had these weird things going around it that connected all the towers together, and it actually looked like a spider web. So I'm like, this is not a cell phone tower. We go on into town. We look at we look at the house and all that, and the town's really run down. It's like all the houses, the paint's chipping. It looks just like a really run down. Like this town is on its last legs. So we have some issues. I had a flat tire and a few other things. And we take our time. We come back. As we're coming back, I just said, hey, we're going to stop and look at this thing. And we stop. I get out. We're taking pictures. I'm looking around. And I'm like, there's no way this is any kind of a cell phone tower. And it couldn't even be, it couldn't even be described as any kind of radio tower, like you would use in commercial radio. It wasn't even there. And we had lived a few years ago. We only lived about 2 or 3 miles from this area, and I knew it wasn't there then. This is about 7 or 8 years ago. And as I did my research, I found that this was just commissioned in 2008 by a company called Rockwell Collins. And if you go to rockwellcollins.com, you'll notice right on the front page, the very first thing you're going to see probably is a little drone flying. And apparently this company deals with drones and control of drones. And as I dig into this, and I can't believe what I'm finding here, this is actually they call it the comm center is what they call it. So this is one of the main centers. And Rockwell Collins is based out of Cedar Rapids, which is 45 miles due west of the site that we're talking about here in Oxford Junction. And I dig a little further, and I noticed that this thing is part of a network across the United States that goes all the way down to New Mexico, over to Florida, back up to New York, and back to Iowa, which covers over half of the country. Now why would we possibly need a grid, an AM frequency grid that covers that kind of ground? And of course, I found out later on that drones are controlled by high frequency AM radio. It's one of the many methods used, to control drones. So, and as we all know, AM frequencies tend to bend with the Earth. They don't shoot out into space like FM frequencies and things like that. They actually bend. They will bend with the curvature of the Earth. So, what better way to communicate and to control a possible grid? Now, I'm not going to say that's what it is. However, after all the research into Rockwell Collins, and if you guys want to do it yourself, read my article. I got a ton of links in there. Go click on each individual link, look at the maps and everything that I put up there of this grid, and I'm telling you, I think it is. I think it's some kind of drone control or part of a drone control grid. And people that don't think they're flying drones in this country, I got news for you. There's proof that it is possible.
Well, I mean, they already do. They've admitted they've been using UAVs, Predators, for years to fly over Florida and all the quote-unquote border states. And since Florida is just a big peninsula, the whole state, at least according to the Border Patrol, is considered a Constitution-free zone, because they consider Constitution-free zones to be 100 miles in from the physical border, the edges of the physical landmass. So if you do that from either side of Florida, you overlap. So the whole state. So they've been flying drones over here supposedly to stop illegal immigration and drugs. I mean, the Coast Guard's not out there all the time with planes, helicopters, and ships, right? No.
Here's the thing. How many years have they been doing this? Because I'll tell you right now, Rockwell Collins spun off of Rockwell International. Guess what year they spun off? Just take a wild guess.
Let me guess.
I already told you this, but
I know. I'll try to pretend that I don't know. No, I already know. It's 2001.
Yeah, 2001. I wonder what other big event happened in 2001 that may have spawned something.
With remote controlled airplanes.
I don't. That's weird.
On the book. Conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Hey, look, you know what? Honestly, when I read this article, and I know you're not a big, oh my God, run, the sky is falling type person. And I read the article and I saw how much research you put into it. And then I went and did a little research myself. And I was just like, oh, wow. Wow, Skynet is coming. So it is quite a possibility, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to continue on this path when we come back from break. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And when we went to break, Johnny and I were discussing his article that he just wrote. It's over on federaljack.com and over on his site as well, koalive.com. And it's about these antenna that he noticed while he was driving around. And doing a little research on this, these things, and you have to read the article and then actually go do the research. You can't just take what we're saying, as gospel. And, oh my God, they said they are drone control towers. No, they could be. The kind of freaky part is the evidence points to that they could very well be used, being used for this, because they can be used for this. So the question is, are they currently being used for this? There's, two different things there. You can use these things for this. There is no doubt. Anybody that researches this, anybody that starts to understand AM frequencies and things like that and gets into it, well, you'll understand that, yes, this actually, in fact, Johnny's going to get into it a little bit, but he's going to explain how it's actually better. This whole setup would be better for them than using satellites. And don't think that they wouldn't do this. I mean, how many times, I thought about this during the break, Johnny, how many times in the movies have you seen where they have some elaborate control system, maybe automated something and sentinels or whatever, and they're controlled by some control center hidden somewhere, and everybody thinks that it's all these satellites or something, and it ends up being some really rudimentary thing that ends up controlling them, and it was, but it was hidden and away from everybody. Well, what better place to hide the controls for something diabolical than right in front of everybody in the form of these AM towers? No one's going to think anything of that. Everybody would think that there's satellites floating around in space controlling these things, and it's right in front of your face.
Exactly. And the really important thing here is a lot of that is all automatic, which that's how ALE works. It's called automatic link establishment. And that's very important. And this site is actually, I did the research on it. This site is capable of what they call ALE, high frequency ALE. So, and really, they're sending emails with this stuff. You can send text messages. You can connect to the internet with this stuff. And one of the big things too is you're talking about the satellites. This system has now provided the links that everything they have, and they actually could have it now at 100%. This, some of the research I've done are older articles from a couple of years ago, but they actually have this whole system set up where it covers 95% of the Earth, which is almost SATCOM, reliable. It's almost satellite communications reliable. They're very close, or they're probably by now, they probably already have it established. But yeah, everybody drives by these things, Popeye, and they don't even think about it, because you're always thinking about radio towers. You see all these cell phone towers up, and you don't even think about it. You don't even look, and you might glance out of the corner of your eye. But and this particular one, by the way, is off the main highway. There's a main highway, US 30, that runs not far away. However, because it sits inside of like these little foothills, you can't see it from Highway 30. The only way you're going to see it is if you drive right by it. And the pictures I took, you couldn't even see those little spider web connections, those cables. You couldn't even see the cables in the pictures I took because of, I'm going to have to figure out a way. I'm not a big, I don't know anything about photography, so I don't know how to do that. But maybe on a cloudy day or something like that, they'll show up better. But this system is global. It is what the president uses to communicate. It is what the Defense Department uses to communicate.
And you just made a good point, by the way, and I don't even think you realized it. You just made a great point. One of the reasons that they would need this system and it would be better than satellite, you just say, because what did you say? Well, on a non-cloudy day. Well, dude, think about it. Satellite communication gets screwed up by weather all the time, right? Well,
Yep.
You don't think that these people have thought about that? I know you know this. I'm saying this to the general audience. They've thought about this stuff already. So what's a foolproof way that they know already works? The AM frequency. And it's pretty much like a blanket. If you put these things in certain spots over the country, and you know they're going to broadcast out over a certain extent, you have them overlap a little bit, and it creates a grid pattern. Now, not only could you control these drones inside that grid pattern, but that's eerily reminiscent of old school radar, right? The original radar from like World War II.
Yep. So
one has to wonder, could they figure out a way to actually monitor anything flying around in the airspace too, through that through that radio frequency? Like if they could figure out a way to map all of the radio frequency, I'm sure they could figure out a way to monitor something moving around inside that space. All you'd have to do is figure out a way to detect what's disrupting that frequency and a way to pick that up. That's creepy, dude. I mean, that's like basic old school, like World War II type radar.
Well, Collins actually, funny you mentioned that. This guy, Arthur Collins, the one that started Collins radio equipment back in, I think it was 1933, somewhere in that neighborhood. He actually was known for his transceivers, and that's how he got started. And he worked his way into the military contracts, and he pretty much became the standard. Collins equipment was the standard in World War II, and then he was also involved with the space race when they were the Apollo mission, and there's a couple other missions, and the Skylab. So, and that was around 1973 when the Skylab deal happened, and amazingly, for some reason, he quote unquote came upon hard financial times. Now, how do you come upon hard financial times when you're providing all of this equipment, not only for AM radio corporations all over the country? They're all using your equipment. Matter of fact, there's still AM stations right now that have Collins equipment as a backup to their digital equipment. And, how do you come upon hard times financially when you're providing all this equipment to not only NASA and the military and, commercial use? But in 1973 is when Rockwell swooped in and bought them out, and then they continued on their path until 2001 when they spun off into this company that actually controls drones, and they have simulation equipment, and and they have flight control systems in airlines. I mean, all that stuff, So, dude, this thing goes so deep and it goes so far, and it's been right in front of our faces for so long. It just amazes me.
And, dude, what better place to hide it? Like I said earlier, think about it. And that thing really does remind me of the old school radar antenna from World War II. When I was a kid growing up in Jersey, on the East Coast, we had, at least when I was a kid, a lot of it, some of it's been destroyed now or taken down. Maybe people bought up, the land over the years, developers or whatever. But when I was a kid, there were still a lot of World War II relics left. I mean, World War II had only ended 30-something years earlier. Vietnam had literally just ended. So a lot of this stuff was still fresh for me, It was very different than it is for kids today growing up who don't even know what World War II is. So we used to go and check out all these old bunkers or old military depots and stuff. They're haunted. You'd go check them out. And I remember one of the things that especially even during the Cold War, they used these things were like one of them in particular in Nutley, New Jersey. I don't know if it's still there, but there was this old school, like World War II, Cold War era radar system. And it wasn't a radar dish or nothing. It was a huge antenna array. And then they had cables and everything else, whatever, and all in everything, huge. And it was, I would say, oh God, it had to be at least 150 feet to 200 feet across, like ground level. I couldn't even tell you how high it was, but it was fenced off. And I don't know. I know, they always said government property, don't go near, whatever, blah blah blah. But They supposedly still didn't use it. You know, they said it was out of use or whatever, but who knows? Maybe they retrofit those things. I don't know. Just that's what that thing reminds me of. Creepy thought. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Johnny, I know I have a bunch of other stuff I want to get to, but I want to spend a few more minutes on this because this is really an important topic. I don't think anybody's really even noticed this much. This is, again, this whole drone thing is evolving. It's a fluid situation every day. And this is, something that's branching off of it. It's something that, as you research it more and more, the things that could be done with this it's kind of creepy. I mean, they could, like I said, they could control these drones. Who knows? They might even be able to use it as some sort of radar system. What about mind control?
I have heard that, and actually, when I first mentioned the article, I believe somebody, kind of spoke up and said, yeah, those frequencies have been known to be used for, I've heard the stories. I'm sure some of the other people have heard the stories as well, where people say that, they hear voices in their head. And I don't know. I've never heard that, so I can't say for sure, and I don't really know anyone that has. But I suppose it's possible, with the way radio waves work. You'd have to really study them to kind of know, and I'm not an aficionado of AM radio, so I don't know for sure.
And now with the advent of RFID, if you have that thing plugged into you and it's like an antenna and that frequency is constantly surrounding you.
Oh, yeah, and actually with RFID, if you think about this too, Popeye, if they have this grid laid out, what's to say that this won't be able to track you and be able to track those chips as well as, these sites are probably multi-capable. They can do all kinds of things. It's like when we, talk about HARP and maybe HARP was started for a different reason, and then they figured out, oh, wait, look what we can do. And they just keep adding to it, and they figure, oh, look, it'll do this too. And it could be the same thing. These arrays could very well be used to track RFID chips as well.
Well, a lot of people will say, why would they use some old school, 50-year-old, if not older, technology to do this? Well, because it's efficient and it works and it's foolproof, okay? And that's the way they roll. And if they have all this stuff laying around from the Cold War, what if the decommissioning of all that stuff was done on purpose because they knew they were going to do this with it? All that happened around the same time that this whole digital millennia came in, where radio started to go from analog to digital, where everybody started talking about switching the TV signal over from analog to digital, and then years later
why
it was
the big
done.
push?
Yeah,
why the big push?
Makes one wonder. And you have to remember, these people think, dude, in steps of 20, 30, 50 years. This is one of this quote unquote movement's biggest problem, or actually the country's biggest problem, or humanity's biggest problem, we'll say, because even worldwide a lot of people can't grasp this. A lot of people live their life. Remember, everybody's pushed and told via media and the propaganda to live your life day by day. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about tomorrow. Live your life day by day. Enjoy your life. Go out and have fun. Okay? They want you focused on the minutia, the day-by-day details. That's how come people get so involved in drama and all this other crap. Meanwhile, the powers that shouldn't be, they don't even think in 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead. Nope. They're thinking 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100 years ahead. They are literally light years ahead of us in their thinking and their planning. And that's why we seem to stumble. When we always seem to go 2 or 3 steps behind. And that's why they're scared, because now we're catching up. Now we're starting to run like a marathon runner. And they're starting to trip up because this whole time they've been arrogant.
And think about this too, Popeye. Think about this too for a second. If they shut the internet down tomorrow, if they shut down all the internet, where they have this button or this switch and they shut it down, won't they need another communications device? Won't they need some other way to communicate via the internet where it's shut down for you and me, but their little AM broadcasting, their ALE will be able to connect easily, and they'll be able to transfer information back and forth?
And for those of you that might be new listeners, this was a subject I discussed with white hat hacker Winston Smith, who I had on about, I don't know, last time Winston was on was probably about 6 months ago now, maybe. But I mean, I talk to him off air all the time, but he's into some stuff. So he's right now he's kind of iffy about coming back on air. Not for anything I did, but he's into some interesting things. But he keeps me apprised of things, we'll say, anyway. But we discussed this very fact that if the internet ever went down, I had said to him, you guys, meaning hackers, need to create a, internet part 2 or internet B or, plan B or whatever you want to call it, right? And he said, there's people that have been talking about it, there's chatter amongst the hacker community about it and blah, 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 blah. And basically there are people working on using the old AM frequencies. What? Whoa. If you go back and you listen to these older broadcasts and you fast forward to what Johnny and I are talking about right now, what does that tell you? We're not the only ones, obviously, that have thought about that. So what are they doing with all this old Cold War technology? Now, a lot of people, are going to say, dude, it's all old. I'm going to tell you what, that old technology, that stuff works. When I was a kid, even when that stuff was 30 years old already, that stuff was awesome. Like this big boom and all this new stuff that you see and all this new cool G.I. Joe type gear, that's in the past 11 years since those planes flew into the buildings, okay? You didn't see the huge buildup. I mean, there was military might and buildup, and there was always the military-industrial complex, but nothing ever like you see it now. Nothing, ever. I speak from someone who grew up as a fireman, and we, watched FEMA come in slowly and creep its fingers into the local fire departments. I actually worked with them back in the day. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was actually, they gave us a $1.50. And I was the only person that knew how to do it. It was me and at the time, me and the Office of Emergency Management guy that were qualified to drive it. So I became his driver pretty much. That I have to admit, that was pretty fun. But, now that I know what's going on, looking back, they gave us that. I mean, I think the town paid a little tiny stipend for it. But, I mean, they pretty much gave it to us. Now, why would you give a town, a small town in Jersey, $1.50? People are like, oh, you guys are emergency responders. It's great. I mean, technically, it was cool to have the toy, but technically, we really didn't need it. You know what I mean? Did we really need a militarized vehicle? But now that I look back and I understand, you know what I mean? So if this has been going on that long, right, then what about all this old Cold War stuff again that they decommissioned, all these bases in the 90s that Clinton decommissioned? What if they knew what they were doing already? Is it that far out of the realm of possibilities? What do you think?
I remember the old bag phones, the old analog cell phones I don't mean the gigantic ones when they first came out. I'm talking about just, not too many years ago, where you had, perfect reception. They never dropped calls. I mean, it was, you rarely ever had a cell phone drop a call while it was working on the analog system. Also, same thing with television. Television, you rarely ever had an actual signal issue with your TV. Now you get that pixelated crap when the digital signal if it snows or if the wind blows too hard or if a thunderstorm's coming through. You have all this stuff. And why such the big push? Why the huge push? Why did they make people switch? That's what they did. The FCC made everyone switch to digital. It wasn't asked of them. It was at first. And then when they didn't move fast enough, well, now we're going to push you to do it. So here's the deadline. And, I guarantee you, Popeye, if we go back and we trace all that to, when all these big pushes to digital happened, I think you're going to see, I think you'll see some similarities there, and you're going to see some things that match up, with what we're talking about. So, I remember analog very well, and it worked. It just worked. That's it. It just worked, and that's why they want to use it, because it just works no matter what.
Dude, when I was a firefighter, we had these, the old, before they switched over to these digital high band radios, we had these old analog radios. And dude, these things worked great, okay? We could be in a house fire, in a basement, surrounded by concrete walls. These radios worked great. Just perfect. But everybody had their own frequency, fire department, EMS, and police. So during this whole time, this same era is when they pushed to try to get everybody to work together, and they wanted everybody on one frequency, these digital high bands. They never worked. I can tell you what, those things almost killed people I know, okay, in house fires because those friggin' radios didn't work. Go look at 9/11. Go look at about the radios not working in 9/11. Same thing, all these new high band radios around that time. Why was there this huge switch for this digital frequency when the radios, the analog stuff worked pretty good? Makes one wonder. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Check Johnny's article out over on federaljack.com and KOAlive.com, which is Johnny's website. And he's going to be posting them on both places. And again, he is now one of my exclusive writers over at Federal Jack. I'm pleased that Johnny actually approached me, and he was like, hey, I'd like to write some exclusive content. And he actually does a hell of a job. I think his first article came out. I came out a lot better than I thought it was going to be, quite honest with you. I gave you a quick, brief rundown on WordPress, and bam, dude. So good job. Keep it up.
Well, I did actually know a lot of the stuff you're telling me. I was just keeping my mouth shut and just letting you go over it. All I needed to know was how to log in and what the format you needed me to do it in. So,
well, it's nice to not have to babysit people. That's all I'll say. You know some of the, you know how things go on the back end of things.
I know
when you run something, so it's nice to be able to go. Go ahead, Johnny. Right.
Well, and I am going to be doing more articles. I'm going to be doing some. Probably going to be doing some tech articles, as well, and that some people may or may not be interested in. But I'm going to try to get some of these Android developers on to interview, on my show. I'm a big techno nerd, as I love technology too. So it is what it is. I'm going to try to do the best I can. I mean, the first article was pretty. It seemed like I was going into too much detail, because I wanted to kind of spread it out. But yeah, thank you very much for letting me do that, and it's going to be fun, I think.
Dude, you don't have to thank me. I appreciate you taking your time to write the content. I don't think you went into too much detail. I think it's good. People need to have this technical breakdown and understanding of it. I mean, think about it, dude. We just spent 45 minutes pretty much going over the possibilities of what could be done with this technology, and that's just us. We're not, radar operators or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, EMs, electrical engineering. I don't know what would be the specific field that would fall under, what I guess you could try to label something like remote control, radio frequencies, whatever. We're not specialists in that. And look what we could come up with in like 45 minutes. Can you imagine what the people that actually get paid a couple $100,000 a year a piece to think about this stuff come up with? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're obviously, smarter than we are when it comes to this stuff. But, and at this point, a lot of it's speculation. However, I'm going to try to get some interviews. I cannot get anyone to call me back from Rockwell Collins. I can't get any return emails, of course. I didn't expect them to. So I'm going to try to maybe get some locals, maybe interview some locals and see if they know anything more. However, I doubt that's going to turn out very well either, because they're just going to look at me, blankly. All
right, well, if there's any professionals out there that might, and again, I wouldn't know what label to call you guys, and I hate labels anyway, but whatever title you would fall under, if anybody hears this broadcast and you understand radio frequencies, or AM radio, blah, 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 whatever, you understand all this, and you happen to have a better grasp of it than we do, contact Johnny. Johnny, what's the best way to contact you email-wise so that you can interview them?
Yeah, email would be johnny@koalive.com. Very simple, johnny@koalive.com. And, I would love to entertain, the prospect of having someone that knows about this stuff and knows more than I do. Because, like I said, I found a lot of stuff through research. However, I'm not 100% sure on what they're using this for. Or maybe there's somebody out there, Popeye, that maybe wants to toot their little whistle. They might want to blow their little whistle. Maybe they know something. And we will absolutely give them anonymity when it comes to, what they're saying. We're not going to let anybody know who they are, or, but if they want to do that, I can do that as well.
Yeah, and the same thing for anybody that, like a professional, if you want to give us your opinion on it, but you don't want to, you're not sure about giving your real name or whatever. You can use a fake name. I really don't care, as long as you're really, the information is accurate. And I could sit and have a, whether it's through email or we could sit and have a conversation with you and try to bounce ideas off you, and you're not some fake troll or whatever. But if you are the real deal, we have no issue helping you, do whatever, remain somewhat anonymous. I mean, even the lamestream media does that. It's a courtesy. If you want to get the information out of people, sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my segment producer Chris just sent me a message. He's going to work on it, so hopefully here in the next week or so, I'll have an interview with someone who knows their business. Because I know.
Yeah, well, no, we need. Because I have a. I mean, I let me know. I'll throw a couple questions your way. You could ask them too, because I have a few things. I mean, dude, look. Let's be honest. The implications of what they could do with this, right? I mean, this is an older school technology that's already been used for all of the things that we've talked about already. Everything, right? They've already done everything with it that we've talked about. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe that's what they're planning for. Everybody keeps saying, what are they planning for? What are they planning for? Maybe that, maybe there's more, maybe it's not just the sky is going to fall and that'll be the end of the world and blah, 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 blah. They've created this satellite internet dependent culture, right? What if they're building their secondary internet for themselves? And that's what this thing is. And who knows, I'm willing to bet that's probably how they communicate amongst themselves now and don't get caught. Everybody says, I don't understand how these cell phone signals don't get intercepted and this and that. If it's running on this and not running on the satellites, well, it's like someone's hiding in the closet in the upstairs bedroom and you're in the shed in the backyard looking for them. You're not looking in the right spot. You ain't going to find it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's why I wrote the article the way I wrote it, is the fact that here's the capabilities of this site. Here's the site I found. Here's the information I found out. Here's who owns the site. Here's what they're capable of doing. And I'm not going to go all the way in and say, yes, this is what it's being used for sure. No, I'm not. I'm not going to say that. If someone happens to know, hey, great, we'll gladly entertain what they have to say. Again, I don't trust the government. I don't trust people who work for the government. So again, I'll take that whatever they say with a grain of salt. But we do know the capabilities. I listed all the capabilities of this site, and it's very plain, that what it's capable of doing. So we have to move forward from there.
Yeah, and this is real. This isn't, oh, you guys are crazy. They're not going to fly drones over the United States. Maybe 2 years ago you'd be able to have that argument because they hadn't publicly admitted that they were going to be doing it. It was in their papers and their conversations, but they hadn't openly admitted it. And it would have maybe still been speculation at that point, but now it's openly talked about. The mainstream media talks about it. They just had Rand Paul filibuster about drone striking people here inside the country. All these different states and cities and counties are banning cops using drones and things like that. So obviously, in the past couple years, what once was a crazy kooky conspiracy theory, right, is now a crazy kooky conspiracy reality.
Well, the funny thing is I screwed up my back on Friday, so I had to go to the Cairo a couple times last week. And I'm sitting there having a conversation with the lady behind the desk, and I'm talking about, matter of fact, that was on the news. They were talking about if you remember JFK, there was a plane approaching JFK and a drone flew up, and the pilot's radioing back saying, hey, there's a drone 200 feet away from the plane. And by the way, that particular drone, at least what they showed on the TV, you can actually find those drones on DIYdrones.com. If you go to, and that's one of the websites I ran across in my research was DIY, which is do it yourself, DIYdrones.com, and you'll see a picture of the very drone that they showed on the illustration. But I'm talking about this. I'm saying, yeah, by the way, I found an antenna array just a few miles from here, and it could be used for, and she's staring at me like, what? What? I didn't see that on CNN or Fox I'm like, no, and you won't. It's like this stuff has been going on. She goes, yeah, I know about all the, well, she didn't say this exactly, but she's talking about all the brown people that come over the borders from Mexico that aren't Mexican, that they're all and that all these people, she was more or less alluding to the fact that there was a terrorist that was flying this drone close to this airplane. I'm like, come on, lady. You know, I mean, let's get a little real here. You know, and it just amazed me how these small town people, they just don't know. They have no idea what I'm talking about.
Because they watch Fox News and they were told that the open border means that Iranians are coming across the border from Mexico, working with the drug cartels in order to kill us because they hate us because of our freedom, because they worship Islam and not Christianity or whatever. And, you know, go drink your Kool-Aid and get your Army of One bumper sticker put on the back of your pickup truck and oorah, I'm going to go fight for the United States Corporation. It should be called the USC.
Yeah.
Seriously, or the Corporation of the United. I mean, it is really a corporation. People just don't know that. That's why you don't see, you know, like USA Marines, USA Coast Guard, USA Army, USA Navy. You see US. Well, United States is a corporation. I love when people try to debunk that. No, it's not. Go look it up. It's listed as a corporation. The whole District of Columbia thing, my people there can't vote. Their representative has, like, no power. Yeah, okay. Oh, but we live in a democracy. Freedom, USA. I'm sorry. I'm being facetious. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hour one up. Hour number two coming up. I just get agitated sometimes.
I do too.
Goose Fraba. Breathe in, breathe out. Hour two coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to pick Johnny's mind on the Iraq burn pits and more. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number two here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is March 10th, 2013. It's the Sunday edition. And you know what that means. Every 2 weeks, cutting through the BS with Johnny English. Today's episode number 6. This is hour number 2 of episode number 6. Hour number 1, if you haven't heard it, if you're hearing this on the rebroad, go make sure you check out hour number 1. You can hear it in the Orion archives. You can hear it in my archives over on FederalJack.com, commercial free altogether. Check it out. We were talking about an article Johnny wrote about these towers that he noticed, and he started looking into it, and we were talking about the AM frequencies and all the different things that they could do and the implications of the use of these things, ranging from mind control to drone control, tracking. It's just, it's really creepy. Second internet. So if you haven't heard it, go check out hour number 1. Johnny, hour number 2, I want to get your opinion on a few things. And we were chatting during the break, and I actually had to make us stop because I was like, no, we need to do this on air. So I had to interrupt us. That's what happens. You know how it is.
Oh, I know.
So I'm going to rewind a little bit, and then, you know, we'll end up repeating ourselves to each other a little bit. But for the audience, obviously, you know the deal. So, okay. What got Johnny so riled up and what got me riled up when we were going over this was TSA last year. TSA kept $531,395 in passenger, quote, change. Now, what does really change mean? I mean, could it be to me, it's got, I would assume it includes loose dollar bills and 20s and 50s and 100s that have gone missing, and they've admittedly stolen. They've caught agents stealing money. So, but they say, no, that's not what this is. This is people leaving their money behind. And by law, TSA is allowed to keep it. So I know there was a representative from Florida last year that wanted to try to get the money to go towards the USO, and the government shot that down, and the money goes into the TSA operating funds each year. So on top of now, by the way, free from the quote-unquote sequester monster is the TSA, and they just actually got $1,000 a year uniform allowance for new costumes. That's more than they give to veterans who have prosthetic legs and stuff, because that stuff wears out your clothing from rubbing on it. So the VA supplies them with a little bit of this tiny little stipend each year to help cover the cost of clothing, because anybody.
God bless them.
Yeah, right. Like, oh, so thank you, sir. May I have another? Dicks. But they give the TSA goons a bigger stipend than that. The Marine Corps gets the officers in the Marine Corps get less of a uniform allowance than this. A lieutenant in the Marine Corps gets a smaller uniform allowance than the TSA goons do. What the hell is wrong with that picture? I'm not saying we should bolster up the warriors and push them out to kill, but I'm just saying, like, huh? You say these people are so great, but then you give the pedophiles and criminals that work at the TSA a $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year uniform allowance. And so they get all this money from Congress and everything else, and then on top of it, now they're making an extra $531,000 a year. I wonder whose pocket did that go to? I'm willing to bet that not all of that money made it into the TSA kitty, if you know what I mean. I'm sure somebody had dinner somewhere. I mean, stupid passengers, we're going out to dinner on them tonight. I've seen it when I worked in military and when I worked in government. I saw people. When I was a firefighter, or even local level stuff, you see corruption. So please, TSA, non-corruptible. They would never use that money. And last year it was $409,000. Well, wow.
Apparently they don't put that on the application, because I actually applied for. I think back then they called it new airport or federal airport security. They call it something else. It wasn't TSA yet. And I actually applied. I went through the entire process, and there were several different levels, and I made it to the last level, which was an interview process. And then they told me what I would be making every year, and I was like, well, no, I can't do that, because it was just, it was only like $35,000 a year or something. So apparently this is a perk that is not listed in the application process.
Apparently so. And I've talked about on air before the story about my time meeting a TSA groper, not in the airport. This was the older listeners know this. For the newer listeners, I'll go over this. And actually, Johnny had never heard this until I told him off air. So, probably about 2.5 years ago now, maybe 3. Time just flies by. My wife and I were shopping. We had stopped at Winn-Dixie to grab something from Winn-Dixie. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And it was right around the corner from where I used to live. And we went over there, and the guy bagging groceries, I was wearing one of my old Homeland Security shirts from when I was in the Coast Guard, Department of Homeland Security. We had T-shirts that say Homeland Security on them. So I threw it on, ran out the door. Didn't even think about it. You know how it is. You have an old Army shirt, whatever, laying around. You grab it, whatever, run out the door. Sometimes you just got to get to the store before they close. So dude's bagging groceries, sees my Homeland Security shirt, instantly forms a kinship with me, right? Because now he works for TSA, but I didn't know that at the time. He proceeds to tell me how he's a TSA groper and that he's proud of this position. And because he said that to me and he came off, I was like, all right, I got to see what this guy does. He's bagging groceries, right? So I proceed to be like, wow, you must make a ton of money between, groping, TSA, doing your TSA gig, and working here, doing stock, and I'm sure you're probably, management or whatever. And he's like, no, dude, I'm just the bagger. He's like, all I do here is that's all I do is bag groceries. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, they even let the special needs kids do more than bag groceries, dude. So if you're only allowed to bag groceries, like, what level are you on, right? And then you think about what he does at the airport. He was telling me how according to him, he was like, that's his sole job at TSA was, he's like, I'm one of the guys that does the pat downs and the groping and stuff. He's like, I don't have a problem doing it. So and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you don't, because that's probably the only date you get. I'm sure his phone isn't ringing on a Saturday night, dude.
Think about this though, Popeye, too. What kind of clearance does he have as a TSA agent? Just in general, I'm sure they probably have different levels, as do when I was in the military, I had a secret clearance because of the job that I did. But there were also top secret clearances, and there's one or two above that even that you'll never see unless you're a general or something. But maybe they have different levels. But what kind of a security clearance does a bag boy have in the TSA? I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. That doesn't even sound right.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy is only allowed to bag groceries, right? And he didn't seem off or anything like that. Didn't seem like I mean, obviously there was something wrong with him, but it wasn't, it wasn't like there was any level of, I don't want to say retardation because the technical term for retardation is misused. So he wasn't wearing a helmet? Yeah, he wasn't like special needs or anything like that. The guy was, for all intents and purposes, from what I can tell, he was normal except for the fact that he enjoyed groping people at TSA. So, I mean, but it just goes to show you the level of dirtbag that they hire, because this guy's not allowed to do anything more when Dixie than bag groceries, but the TSA puts him in charge of groping people.
I bet they won't even let him near a register.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. So, like, dude, like, you're not even allowed to push carts. He was like, no, I strictly bag groceries. So, you're only allowed to bag groceries, the simplest thing you could possibly do, and then the government feels it necessary to give this dude some sort of clearance and a costume and the right to grope people. Right. That's the level of scumbag groping women. And if he tried to grope my wife, we would have been knocked out, whether we were in the airport or outside the airport. No call for that crap. We're going to break, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny, moving on from TSA, because I don't want to give them more attention than they actually deserve. We obviously know what needs to be done with them. Close it down, ladies and gentlemen, and then actually start to prosecute the people that did things wrong, and go out and actively try to seek people that were, they do this all the time. Prosecutors have done this. You can go out and actually interview people and figure out whether or not they're telling the truth or not. And we should close them down and go after these scumbags that have done things and stolen things and all this other stuff. I know they go after a few of them here or there, but we should also go after the higher level dirtbags too, not just the little fish that they throw us. But moving on, Johnny, I knew you weren't too familiar with the burn pits in Iraq, and I wanted to play a little bit of audio really quick, but so people understand, the burn pits in Iraq were these huge burn pits. They had them at a couple different locations, and basically that's where all the garbage went, feces, anything that they do burn the crap and crap barrels and stuff, but there was waste thrown in there. Medical waste was thrown in there, body parts, computers,
probably the new halogen light bulbs.
Light bulb, all that stuff. It was all thrown in there. Like I was telling you, if they made an order, like they would order and KBR would send them the wrong stuff, and rather than send it back, KBR, rather than, because the KBR instead of sending it back and getting, now the government gets credit, we have to give them something else for free, right? No. KBR would then go and they would, the government would order something, the people would order it again, and KBR would send them another thing and bill them a second time. And what they would do with the other thing, now they got this thing sitting around. You're in a war zone. You can't just have crap sitting around. Well, we have burn pits. Put it in the burn pit. So they would take brand new computers, cars, whatever, into the burn pit.
Yeah, people think it's safe to burn everything. I got news for you. Okay, you burn it. But if you're standing around inhaling this stuff, if you're inhaling the smoke, that's toxic. And everything has a level of toxicity. Everything does. Plastics and paint and you name it. There's always something in there that's got some kind of level that is not good for you. It's not meant for you to be standing around inhaling this stuff.
Vets are getting sick and dying from this stuff. Lung diseases. It's really horrible. And at first they were saying, "Oh, there's no connection. There's no connection." Now they really have no option but to admit it. But I'm going to play a little bit of audio really quick, and then I want to get into this with you because not only are you a smart guy, but you're also a vet. So I definitely want to get your opinion on this. And ladies and gentlemen, you could look this up. Just look up the Iraq burn pits. You want to see how there was wasteful spending and throwing things into burn pits. This is just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. A good movie to watch from back in the day that came out is Iraq for Sale. It's all over YouTube. In fact, if you go to the Reality of War section under the Download Archive section, if you go to federaljack.com, click on the Downloadable Info Vault button there in the front, it opens up the download page. Go down to the bottom, the Reality of War section, click on that. Iraq for Sale is in there. You can download it and have the copy of it and watch it whenever you want. Watch the movie and go listen to what all these the veterans from Iraq Veterans Against the War said during the Winter Soldier testimonies they've had over the years about this stuff. This is horrible. Now, listen to this guy's case. When you hear this story, this is really sad. This dude is really young, super, super young. Just listen to this. This is all from, he wasn't a burn pit worker. He was infantry. He was just exposed to it.
Leroy Torres was a Texas state trooper and a captain in the Army Reserves when he deployed for a year-long combat tour to Iraq in 2007.
The minute he got back, he was hospitalized. Right when he got back, it was like, okay, it's Iraqi crud. That's what we kept hearing after.
And I'm going to pause it for a second. Anybody that's ever been in the military knows that word crud. That's their standard terminology for when they either don't know what's wrong with you or they don't want to admit what's wrong with you. Their higher-ups have told them they can't admit, so they call it crud. That's what everybody gets like when I went to boot camp, we went to boot camp in Cape May, so it was called the Cape May crud. It was from all the injections they give us.
For a few weeks, he started having these breathing attacks, and it was the scariest moment ever for us.
Leroy's wife, Rosie, says her husband's health issues resulted from exposure to open-air burn pits, which the U.S. military used in Iraq and Afghanistan to torch everything from batteries to body parts. The Department of Veterans Affairs acknowledged Balad, where Torres was based, disposed of several hundred tons per day.
It was very close to the burn pits, at least where I was housed at. But we didn't think nothing of it.
Today, at age 40, Leroy is barely able to leave bed most days. His doctors have diagnosed him with a lung disease, constrictive bronchiolitis. He has a lesion on his brain and cysts in his spleen and groin.
Sometimes the headaches will last a few hours. Sometimes I've had a headache for 8 days. 8 days straight. It's just unexplainable.
I remember one night thinking, who am I holding? Like, what happened to the man that I married? It was at that moment that I thought, this is it. I'm going to have to be his advocate.
Rosie launched a website where those exposed to burn pits can register. She also lobbied Congress to take action. In January, President Obama signed a law giving the Secretary of Veterans Affairs 1 year to create a national registry to track potential burn pit victims.
If it wasn't for Rosie Torres, would this law be in existence?
I don't think so.
Dr. Anthony Sima is a professor at Stony Brook University School of Medicine. He's been analyzing dust from near burn pits.
How toxic is that dust?
This dust has very toxic.
He says 14% of veterans he studied return with some sort of lung complication.
I think clearly we don't allow people to burn things in an unregulated fashion in the United States, and we have EPA limits against the number of particles in the air.
So they shouldn't be doing it over there?
They should not be doing it over there.
As Leroy's condition worsens, he may not benefit from the new law. His dream job is gone already.
It ended his career as a trooper.
Never go back.
No. Sorry.
The National Registry of Burn Pit Victims won't be out until at least 2014. In the meantime, doctors are relying on Rosie's unofficial registry. Her information, her continuing search for answers. Jeff Glore, CBS News, Robstown, Texas.
Tell me again, George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld and the rest of them aren't war criminals. And Obama, too, because he kept pushing things, and I don't want to hear, oh, he got them out of Iraq, please. But tell me again, those scumbags, at least Cheney with his connections to KBR. Tell me again they're not war criminals. I say wrong. That's aside from all the innocent people they killed and invading sovereign countries and everything else. If you think that's okay, but you support the troops, you love the troops, I love veterans, I love our troops, my son's in the Marines, and I want him to go to Afghanistan and kill them Taliban. Really? You want your son to be exposed to a burn pit like that, sir? You think that trooper? Do you hear that, dude? You hear that his wife? Doesn't that piss you off?
It makes me angry. I've never listened to that, and that's the first time I've heard it, and it just makes me angry. I mean, how can it not piss you off? I mean, I know that guy that I used to talk about that I knew that had he was in Gulf War I, and who knows what they were probably doing the same thing back then. And he came back. He was a marathon. I mean, he could run marathons. He was a runner ever since he was in high school. And the military told him, "Oh, well, you have asthma." No, you don't have asthma. The guy spent 2 weeks in an oxygen tent. I don't even know where this guy is anymore. I can't find him. He's probably dead.
Yep. That's how they take care of us. Absolutely disgusting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. Look up whatever search engine you use. Look up the Iraq burn pits and go get go to my reality of war section and take whatever videos, whatever's up there. Research. We'll be right back. Unacceptable. I'm so glad that President Obama has signed into law a bill establishing a database of all the people who have gotten sick from the burn pits. I'm not being facetious towards those people at all. You know how I feel. I think the database should have been created a long time ago. It's about time.
So why don't they do something about it? Well, hey, let's take everyone's name and not do anything.
Well, not only that, what about the DU, dude? What about the depleted uranium? Where's Shinseki on that?
That's at least 10 years away, Popeye. How can you expect them to keep track of that when they've got all this other stuff going on? It'll be at least 10 years.
Because the head of Department of Veterans Affairs, Shinseki, he was Doug Rocky's boss. And he knows all about depleted uranium and what it does in the cleanup. I've interviewed Doug Rocky twice. In fact, I'm going to air my Doug Rocky interview this week. This whole week, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm just going to air, because I have a bunch of interviews still in the can that I want to get out. I just, things come up, and then you have to put it on the side and everything. This week, I'm going to air at least Doug and Charlotte Iserby. But Doug's talked about this before. In fact, we get into detail in this about Shinseki and the health effects of this in the second interview that I haven't aired yet. It's absolutely disgusting. The head of the VA, currently, right now, knows all about depleted uranium. What do I hear when you ask the government about depleted uranium exposure? I hear crickets. I'm actually surprised they admitted this. You found a thing from, 2003? A bulletin or something from the Department of Defense saying that the air in around the burn pits was perfectly fine to breathe?
Well, there was an Army memo in 2008 that said...
that's even worse. It's 2008.
Oh, no. It's going to get worse. 2008, there was a little document called Just the Facts, found no significant short or long-term health risks and no elevated cancer risks are likely among personnel. A 2004 fact sheet from the Pentagon's Deployment Library, Health Library, and still available on the website, by the way, informed troops that the high particulate matter in the air at Bagram should not cause any long-term health effects. That was back in 2004, and then they released another one in 2010 that said, where is it at here? Health outcomes studied among personnel assigned to locations with documented burn pits who had returned from deployment was either lower than or about the same as those who had never deployed. Basically saying they're full of crap. You're not getting anything from these burn pits. You're going to have the same risks as you did if you never would have went over there. And we all know that's BS.
BS. Fast forward to now. Why did Obama sign a law to make this registry and everything and try to get these people help if there was no long-term or short-term health effects? Sir?
This makes me angry.
Sellout scumbags, dude. Sellouts.
Angry.
What really pisses me off is the higher-ups that allow this. Those guys should be tried for murder. Every person that dies from this, they should be held accountable. And not just one individual. There's many of people that should be held accountable for this, and they should all be tried with murder. And each person that dies, it should be one count of murder for each one that dies from the exposure to this. Absolutely unacceptable. Dude, the guy's like 3 years older than I am. And he can barely get out of bed. breathing on a machine to be able to talk to the reporter. And I see that stuff often because I go to the VA for my medical treatment once in a while.
I have to purposely not think about this stuff as I'm driving down the road every night, because when I sit and think about all of this crap that our young men and women are being exposed to, and when they come back, they're forgotten about. And don't make no mistake about it, they are forgotten when they come back. Once that uniform's gone, once they are listed as discharged from whatever service, whichever branch of the military that they are in, they are forgotten about. And it just makes me angry, Popeye, because I think about the entire reason why they're over there is BS. And I don't care whether anyone believes the 9/11 crap that they fed everyone, the government studies and all these different things of why we even went over there to begin with. It was BS. We know it's BS. Everybody, if they did their facts or did their searches and looked at the actual facts, they would know it was BS as well. And it just makes me angry because they're over there. Our troops are over there, and all these people have died or are dying because it's all a lie. Every single bit of it is a lie.
It's absolutely unacceptable, dude. I've played the audio before. In fact, what I'll do on the archive, if you grab the archive, if you download it from the download section, or you play it on the YouTube section, or you play it on the page itself with the embedded MP3 player on Federal Jack later on, what I'll do is you won't hear it on the Rebroad archives. I won't be able to do this and add it to the Orion archives. I can only do this little trick to my archives, but I will add the audio from that video that I have titled Just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq? Again, just for the new listeners that might not have heard it. And I've aired it multiple times, but I'm not going to have time to air it today. So what I'll do is in the archives, when I render the archives and I get everything going, after we sign off, you'll have about another 10 minutes of audio, and that is going to be the audio from Just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq. That's what I call it. It was a video that was put out by the Iraq Mujahideen back in, if I remember correctly, it was 2005. And when you listen to it, and you actually hear what they're saying, and it's not some fake stuff that was put together in some guy's basement or some radio guys put together. This is the real deal, and it's got I've seen the video that goes where I got the audio from. You know what I mean? So I know it's real. And in fact, the video of it, if you want to see it for yourself, if you don't believe me, if you go to the Reality of War section, the download section, the video's there. It's under the title Just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq. You'll see for yourself. It was put out by, it's one of their, I don't know if it was, from what I can gather from it, I think that they tried to get it on the internet, and they were hoping that once it's on the internet, I guess everybody would see it, all Americans will see it. But that was at the same time that they kept blocking quote unquote terror videos and terrorist websites, remember? So nobody saw this thing. And when you listen to this guy, dude, what does he say? He's like, many in our ranks believe that the truth does not get to your people because the news media, works at behest of the government, basically. And I'm paraphrasing what he says. But when you listen to what he's saying, your jaw drops. I've played it on air a couple times, and dude, every time I've played it, everybody that's ever heard it is always like, holy crap. Yeah. Again, if you want to learn the truth about the Iraq War, and that's why I built this section, go to the Reality of War section on federaljack.com. Just go to federaljack.com. Right on the front, you'll see the downloadable info vault button there. Click it. It brings up the download page. Scroll down to the bottom, Reality of War section. Click that and scroll through there. There's a ton of information in there. There's stuff about veteran, everything from real video of fighting to stuff like, just who were we fighting in Iraq, to the IVAW testimonies, to Iraq for sale. Go download it and see for yourself. Okay? Don't believe anything I'm saying or Johnny's saying. Go research it for yourself. And why are these guys still running around free? This is absolutely disgusting. If you or I robbed a 7-Eleven, Johnny, we would be locked up for 15 years, and we're menace to society, according to the judge. Oh, evil. These people have killed millions of people and poisoned millions more, and done just absurdly evil things throughout this world, and they're running around free.
People that have disciplined their children have gone to prison. I don't mean beating. I don't mean child abuse. I mean just normal what we went through when we grew up. You know, when I grew up, I got my ass handed to me if I did anything wrong, and they go to prison. However, the Bushes, the Cheneys, all these people that were involved in sending your brothers, your sisters, your sons, your daughters, your friends over to die because they're so much of a pussy that they wouldn't do it themselves. They run free and get richer.
It's beneath them. Ugh. I say if these scumbags want war so bad, they should be the first ones on the front line. Them and all of their family, everybody, wives, daughters, sons, even grandchildren, babies, they should be forced to be the first ones to fight and die in any war. You'd see an end to it real quick. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Kids, do not join the military. Don't even waste your money going to college. No. Instead, when you graduate high school, you should go out and take a 1/20th of the money that you would spend on just a year's tuition alone and go purchase books yourself, and you can set up your own study course for yourself during the course of the day. And then go out and get a job and help fund yourself and go on about things that way. You don't need, I don't care what anybody says, you don't need a college education. I mean, I'm sure you probably need that piece of paper you're still in some places, but I know people that have gone to college for 4 and 6 years now, and they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're working at the pet supermarket, or they're working at Costco. And it's not bashing them, but because they can't get a job in their industry because the economy sucks, or for whatever reason. I mean, it's just out of control, completely out of control. So my advice would be don't waste your money on college. If you want to see a good movie, go look up The College Conspiracy. I'm sure you can still find a free copy of it on YouTube somewhere.
Well, it's just, 4 to 8 more years of mind control.
Well, and you're not getting any education. It's all indoctrination at this point. And it's this Marxist, socialist, communist agenda that they have that's really, this illuminist crap, which, keeps going on and on and on, back through these bloodlines. So it's really the same agenda, basically. And now it's like mass indoctrination centers. And then, of course, I'm not going to tell you to join the military. Well, I need a job, dude. So you're willing to kill other human beings for a paycheck? You don't know these people? They've done nothing wrong to you. They could be just like you and your own children. But you don't care. As long as you're getting a paycheck, you'll kill them. You need to check yourself. Seriously. I used to think the same way. Trust me. I'm telling you, you need to check yourself.
Well, it's been ingrained in us. You grow up and you go to high school and get your good grades, and then you go to college. And then you get that degree, and the world is yours, Popeye. You have the opportunity with that degree to go out and do whatever you want, and you'll be somebody. You'll be somebody. However, they don't tell you that they already have a list of somebodies, and you have no chance in hell of passing any of those people on that list. I don't care how good you are. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, people are going to tell me, "Oh my God, you're going to ruin people's lives giving that advice." How am I going to ruin their lives? They will not be in debt for like $100,000 for 30 or 40 years, for some college degree that they can't do anything with. If you can go to college and get a degree in something that's useful, and you're smart enough to go past the indoctrination or whatever, then I guess go. Maybe you go to a trade school instead or something. If you're going to educate yourself, you could just be an autodidact. There's got to be there's other schools or whatever. There's other ways to learn things without going to the government-funded, state-controlled or even state bootlicking education centers, indoctrination centers. You know what I'm saying? There's other ways around it other than going there. So just look into your options. And no, stop going into the military. Oh, dude, they offer me college, man. Stop it. Do you agree if the Chinese troops come over here and slaughter your whole family with wanton lust, just, I love blood and death, right? And they come over here and they kill everybody because they're in that war mode, right? Well, no, you wouldn't want that, but that's different. That's the Chinese. They would be coming over here to conquer, to take over, and they're big communists. What about if their soldiers were in the same program in their military? What happens if the Chinese military had the same type of propaganda garbage to suck you in and to be their slave? What if? Think about it.
They've told you, and they've designed a plan where you need that college degree to get a job so you can be a good little worker bee. That's what that's for. They've designed it where you have to have this little piece of paper that says you learned all this stuff. And 9 times out of 10, when I went through the military, I went through a year-long AIT. The very first thing they told me when I got into the real world, when I actually got to my first duty station, forget everything you just learned. And that's the way it is in real life, too. I mean, seriously, I've learned more about radio than probably most people learn in a couple years in college. And, it cost me this for the equipment, but I did all the research myself.
Dude, running the website, I had to learn how to do, basic coding here and there, graphics, video editing. I have my own radio show. I had to get a board. I had to learn how to do all this stuff, coming in and out of breaks. I had to learn all this stuff. Interviewing people. It's not like I had, getting contacts, doing production work. You have to do all that stuff yourself. It forces you to learn this stuff. And you'd be surprised what you can learn, okay? You'd really be surprised. Trust me, you would be surprised what you could learn if you just apply yourself and do it yourself rather than, go to one of these indoctrination centers. And there are some good trade schools out there. I would recommend if you're bent on going to school when you get out, trade school over college any day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. Hands-on is always the best way. Reading it in a book is one thing, but until you're actually working on it yourself, there are very few people that can actually just read a book and then just go out and do it right the first time. You have to have that hands-on training, and trade schools are, they do very well for that sort of thing.
I know I'm going to hear, what about doctors, Popeye? They go to college. Okay, well, obviously, like I said, there are certain professions that I can understand. But again, even then, by the time they get out, a lot of doctors are, they buy into the left side of the false left-right paradigm because of the indoctrination that they've been exposed to over the course of time. So, and I'm sure there is some stuff like that at certain trade schools here or there, but I don't know. I personally, I don't agree with colleges. It's just they're not set up. Most universities will say, maybe the smaller ones aren't, but most universities nowadays are just indoctrination centers, even the lower level colleges. So, I can't say, yeah, go ahead, go to college. I can't. I can't. I can't give you the Popeye seal of approval because I wouldn't go to college. I didn't go to college. I said to my mother when I graduated high school, I said, look, I don't want to go to college. And it's not that I'm not smart and I think I'm dumb and I wouldn't do it. I said, but I don't like the way they do things. I don't learn that way. I have my own way of learning. And I said, why waste $25,000 to $30,000 a year? And this was back then. This is almost 20 years ago. I said, why waste $25,000, $30,000 a year on tuition to go to school where I know I'm just going to go screw around, party, get laid, and get bad grades. I said I could save the $30,000 a year and not be in debt and work, make some money, and still do the same thing and learn. And my mother was like, "That's actually a very adult, decision of you." I said to her, "I don't want to be in debt for the rest of my life." And I ended up going to trade school later on, and then I paid. It took me a while to pay that off, and I paid that off probably about 10 years ago now. But I understand the weight of the student loan thing too. But
that's the next big bubble. I mean, right now they're handing out student loans right now, dude, like they used to hand out mortgage loans. And you see what happened with that? People, did you happen to notice the crash?
What bubble?
What bubble? The huge one right in front of your face. It's gigantic.
Sir, what bubble?
They're sucking people into this, and now it's all online. And now because you can't get away from your job, they know you can't do that. You have children to take care of and all that. Oh, well, we'll make it easy for you. You can just do class whenever you want, but we still need that $10,000. You know, and tell me that they need that kind of money.
It's a scam, dude. I mean, seriously, like, how much money could you need to operate? Well, you know, we have the alumni, and then we have the groundskeeping and the building. Well, maybe you guys are spending a little bit too much on overhead. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you guys should cut back.
If you have one teacher teaching 100 students or 50 students, and each one of those students, let's just work with 100, and each one of them students are paying $50,000 a year to be there. You're only paying that teacher, maybe, you know, a college professor probably gets, you know, they're probably getting 6 digits. But do the math. You know, just do the math. They're getting the teacher at a bargain, man, because that guy's teaching several classes. Where's the other money? Where's the rest of the money going? Where's it going? You know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's more students than teachers, so you figure with all that money in tuition, there's got to be a couple $1 million coming in at least into these colleges each year.
And not to mention the sports programs. Look at the big major colleges. You know, my home state team of Alabama, they've won the national championship the last couple of years in sports. You know how much money they get just for going to a bowl game? Then they get even more money for winning and being the national champion. We're talking millions of dollars here, people. Millions of dollars. So
pay no attention to that, though, Johnny.
Don't look. Don't look.
Well, like I said, I've ranted before in earlier broadcasts. Schools are factories, an assembly line, if you will. And your children are the product. And the college is the continuation. The product was it had its basic makings, came out of the factory, and now they get shipped off to each specific location to get location-specific oriented, we'll say. That's what college is for. And then they go out and they run around and do their crap. We need to break the cycle, ladies and gentlemen. Be an autodidact, educate yourselves, and don't join the military. It's not what you think it is anymore. I'm the anti-recruiter. Don't do it. Johnny, thanks for hanging out again.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here. We love you all. No fear, only love. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As promised in the second hour of the broadcast, I am going to include the audio that I have titled, Just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq? If you have not yet heard it, it'll definitely make you question what you've been told about the Iraq War. The audio comes from a video that dates back to 2005. You can see the full video again in the download section of federaljack.com under the Reality of War section in the download area. And you can just look up Just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq. Here we go. Here's the audio.
People of America, we wish to share with you our thoughts on the events we experienced, as well as what the future may bear. And despite the madness we have endured and still, we see no harm in presenting you with the criminal nature of your newly re-elected emperor. Despite our belief that the elections were flawed, we know now that when there is a close tie between the candidates, there is something wrong. Some in our ranks believe that any candidate from any side of the spectrum are two faces of the same coin. You, the people, have said your word in what is claimed to be a democracy, and thus have chosen a leader who claims to represent your vision. It is your right to lead the world, as it is the right of any nation which chooses to do so. Yet this does not allow you to conquer others. There is a belief of a large number of our people that a lot of the facts do not reach you, facts that may be classified as unsuitable for the general public, facts that are twisted to gain a positive image here or there. Nothing new to an emperor who represents deception, lies, crimes, half-victories, and total defeats. Your administration, time after time, lied and presented you with achievements directed by Hollywood and performed in Iraq. You have elected these criminals, and thus you are responsible for their actions. We hope that your future decisions will be based on reason and belief, for your emperor tomorrow will mirror the image of America to the world, and by his actions will your empire be measured. And for the first time in history, a mafia of the weapons plants represented by Bush, oil companies represented by Dick Cheney, and the Zionists represented by Paul Wolfowitz and Richard Pearl hijacked the United States of America in an ingenious plan to control the world. This type of administration is exactly what Benjamin Franklin once warned of. By weakness and ignorance, you have allowed this gang of criminals to hijack your country, create a new phobia to recruit those whom they regard as nothing but fuel and vehicles to their master plan. This administration will enforce on you, just as it tries to enforce on our people, new laws that will result in a police state similar to those of your consecutive governments back in our region. Legislation will soon be drafted by the appointed puppets to allow foreign ownership of land and structure, and soon our people will be the foreigners on the land of their forefathers. This new world order will enslave people of all religions and race, and soon your children, as well as ours, if they survive, will truly live in a planet of apes. And with a reduced population for ease of control, this can only be the implementation of a plan once presented by Henry Kissinger. This world has not yet seen an empire which constitutes in its prime objectives the destruction and genocide of whole populations and societies, only to control the energy resources of this planet. Your representatives and their media have portrayed an image that an insurgency is in effect, and that it is led by elements of foreign fighters entering from Syria and neighboring countries. Yet we assure you, this is only a continuation of what Bush once claimed, mission accomplished. This resistance movement was prepared for, and is only the second chapter of this war, and we are mostly, if not all Iraqis, proud Iraqis, who kept their oaths to defend people and country. And because this war may last longer than what the invaders anticipated, we have all promised to make their stay long, costly, and painful. Blaming other countries is nothing but creating new pretexts to invade other sovereign states and back future expeditions. They have made our country a battlefield to settle accounts with elements of Al-Qaeda, formerly dear allies and partners. They have also created new phobias to justify their continued presence, despite their loss of this war. And for the general media, we call on them to think about what they declare and not fear death and imprisonment. Do not fall into the traps prepared by those who pull the strings from Tel Aviv. As for the declared casualties, this is an epic on its own. We assure you that the figures are far higher than they declare. It is not a secret today in Iraq what we call the green card soldiers. Young men from South America and other parts of the world gathered and promised the US citizenship and large sums of cash for their mercenary services in Iraq. They are always on the front lines, and their casualty figures are never declared. They are hidden in unmarked graves and dumped into rivers under the cover of moonless nights, some of which the resistance have provided evidence of. There are also a large number of security contractors who are not listed as military personnel. To us, it is one thing to be tricked into this war, but it is totally different to come here and fight someone else's war. After the failed American elections in Iraq, they will now play the sectarian card. They are already sending their mercenaries to destroy churches and mosques alike in order to prepare the ground for civil war. They will train more and more local traitors to conduct police operations and detention raids on anyone who does not accept democracy, performed at the muzzle of a barrel. The local mercenaries will also act as sandbags to their masters when we choose to strike. The non-conduct of your troops has also taken its toll on our people. It has created resentment and disgust. They dismiss these war crimes as isolated cases, yet the figures are always on the rise. What's more are scandals of Abu Ghraib, poker, and the use of chemical weapons on Fallujah, and only God knows what's to come. Life under dictatorship is far more safer than behind the bars of your democracy. Have you not asked yourselves, where are the weapons of mass destruction? And where are the links between our previous government and the once CIA-sponsored Al-Qaeda? Or is that all now a thing of the past? What happened to the thousands of people who died and continue to die of cancer? Women who give birth to deformed babies, caused by the effect of your military's depleted uranium shells. Since 1990, thousands on both sides of the conflict have suffered unknown illnesses. Many have died since then, and others lack medical attention. Large parts of Iraq will be radioactive for millions of years to come. And if we were to return this radiating material to the US and Britain, we would be no different than those who use them. May we ask you, why do you think the British government decided to set foot only in the areas of the South, where the resistance is still partially active? They have left the difficult areas for your boys to suffer. This deal was accepted by your government, only to form a purely cosmetic alliance with a nation that still strives for the glory of its imperial past. They have turned the land of the free into a camp of capitalist slavery, and then changed the home of the brave into a printing house for papers they call dollars, and guarded it with enormous military might. This administration, which claims that you have re-elected, has brought on more humiliation and insults to each and every one of you than any other government in your short yet tremendous history. And as odd as it may seem, we advise you to take matters in your own hands and rid this world of such criminals, or any form of government which resembles the neocons in their aims. Form a third party if need be. Appoint those who resist preemptive war as true representatives of the people before it is too late. And if demonstrations and protests are not heard, use and protect what is left of your constitution and correct matters by force. This world awaits your move. Today these words may seem strange, but we believe that a nation which once gave the world John F. Kennedy, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Hughes and Henry Ford will not fall short of giving true leaders of substance and dignity. This war has taught us that one man on the field can change the outcome of a day. One man who believes in true freedom can do what nations put together dare think of. We share these thoughts with great honesty to those of you who spent days and nights trying to prevent this war, timeless efforts to prevent this real Holocaust. To all of you we say, thank you for your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been lied to about the reason for the Iraq invasion. Educate yourself. Look beyond what the mainstream media and the government is telling you. Good night.